I'm Frank Vaughn. It is May 12th, 2025, and this is the Fulcrum. And rather than go through all the individual news items that I've been perusing today and the research I've been doing into the history of Mark Carney and the organizations that he has been involved in, trying to deduce in some way what's going to happen, as we still have, even though we've gone through an election, we are still without a sitting parliament for another 14 days, almost 2 weeks, until they get back in session. And I've been trying to figure out, what can we actually expect out of this next session of parliament? Various individuals who are involved in the Liberal government and have been involved in the Liberal government for 10 years have come out and said that Mark Carney's leadership will be a clear departure from the leadership of Justin Trudeau. I think that's accurate. And I think it's instructive. Do the ministers and the members of the Liberal Party, the people that you actually vote for when you vote for a federal election, do they matter at all? Or is it just the leadership and those behind the scenes who you never see who actually steer policy? Was Justin Trudeau so bad as an actual leader? Because I do believe, looking back, as much of a useful idiot that he actually was, he engineered a Liberal Party where he was completely unaccountable. They couldn't vote him out. They couldn't replace him. They had to convince him to go by everybody threatening to resign. Things had to get so bad because power was so concentrated in his hands. And now Mark Carney inherits that. And apparently, at least the messaging is, he's going to take the Liberal Party and their government in a different direction. Now, what does that mean? We've been reading his book. We've been doing reviews. We've been looking at his career. There's a lot of people who want to ascribe to Mark Carney the exact same identifiers and characteristics that Justin Trudeau had, and I think that's a mistake. Justin Trudeau was an out-of-control narcissist. Mark Carney's a chameleon, which makes reading this situation all the more hard. We've read his book. We've looked at what he says in it. But is he actually going to do what his book says? He's already revealed that the things that he said he would do during the election campaign, it is just crazy to me, to the point it almost robs me of words, almost robs me of direction. How quickly elbows up is just gone. Any talk of it is gone. He went to the United States. He heaped accolades on President Trump. Trump stopped talking about the 51st state. His ambassador said that's effectively over, that they're going to go into these trade negotiations, and essentially, we're all friends again. And the Canadian public seems quite happy with that outcome. If Poilievre had have done that, if he had signaled that that was his intention, it would have been outrage. I'm beginning to wonder if for the sake of national unity, because getting back to a theme I visited 2 videos ago, and I'm sorry if this is a little disjointed, but there's a lot of thoughts that are coalescing in my mind. China and the United States look like they're going to come to an accord on trade. It looks like whatever geopolitical conflict is simmering, and it is going to be kicked down the road. Well past the midterms, at least, and maybe past the next presidential elections. The world seems to be signaling that there's a ramping down occurring, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's between China and the United States, that we're all going to get along for the next few years, which means the status quo reigns. But does the status quo reign here in Canada? And I don't think it does. Because underneath the surface, there is a real national unity problem. There's a real economic problem. Canada is broken. And the only way to, I don't know if you can fix it, but you can patch it up and you can keep it moving forward. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm trying to deduce what is and what is likely to occur. And I asked many times in the lead up to the election, who do we believe? Do we believe Mark Carney on the campaign trail? Or do we believe Mark Carney, the guy who wrote the book? And the fact is, maybe neither. Maybe neither matter. As has been noted, banks and financial institutions around the world are abandoning net zero conversations. They're backing off of DEI because the money's not there. Well, if the money's not there, I don't think Mark Carney's going to be there. He said he wouldn't repeal Bill C-69, which is the anti-pipeline bill. Maybe we can't believe him. Maybe he does repeal it. Maybe he does meet Daniel Smith's demands. Maybe he does listen to Scott Moe, and maybe there is an effort to mollify the West and de-escalate the situation within the Federation, which means the status quo wins, which is just a tragedy to me. That out of all this hoopla and out of all this elbows up nonsense and out of all this conflict and emotional outpouring and all the irrationality that went into the lead up of the election, that we come out the other side with everybody just as asleep as they were before all the hoopla started, before Trump started talking about 51st state only months ago. So much has happened and so much has just disappeared as we all just go back to sleep. Let's just take a quick look at Scott Moe's Twitter feed right now, the Premier of Saskatchewan. His response to the federal election is still pinned, but we have Happy Mother's Day and we have the 23rd annual Dogs Breakfast. It was a great success, raising money for scholarships and academic assistance for the University of Saskatchewan Huskies football team. Just seems business as usual. Daniel Smith, we got 15,000 new jobs. We got conferences. The sense of urgency just seems to have dropped right off the radar. And maybe that's because there's been private conversations held that indicate there will be some sort of accord or some sort of resolution to the simmering disputes between the provinces and the federal government. It's quite possible that Mark Carney delivers at least a portion of what the Conservative Party of Canada would have delivered. Just think about that as a possibility. I doubt it's going to happen when it comes to firearms. I don't think the orders in council are going to go away. I don't think any of the unjust persecution of gun owners is going to go away. In fact, I think it will continue. But in order to justify the continuance of that, the Liberals will have to release their stranglehold on other files, which maybe they're gearing up to do. I just think it's incredible. If Mark Carney comes in, completely contradicts his book, which nobody read, which none of the people who voted for him read, so if he contradicts it, it's not going to matter to his voting base. So long as it's the Liberals doing the thing, their public, their base, will just go along with it. If he wants to build pipelines, so be it. They'll go along with it. If a conservative did it, they're evil. But if Carney does it, it's great. If Carney wants to go into trade negotiations with the United States, because largely, and this is an important point, Canada cannot stand on its own in a trade war with the United States. We lose. That fact doesn't change. But if China is willing to negotiate and play ball with the United States, then the EU is going to play ball and negotiate with the United States, which means Canada, by necessity, will have to play ball and negotiate with the United States, which means a slightly longer view of events as they unfold. And if we want to hold the Federation together, then the West is going to have to be able to do business. And we're going to have to create that resilience. And the demands that Daniel Smith issued are going to have to be met. And Mark Carney can meet those demands. He can flip a switch because he's a chameleon, and he can become pro-business. He can become pro-energy. He can do those things. And the Liberal base, even though they just voted against those things, even though they just voted against the status quo with the United States, even though they voted for elbows up, it won't matter to them so long as the red team is doing the delivery. This is the situation we find ourselves in. One of the things I noted recently is that We've been 9 months without a functional parliament, and yet the country just ticks on. It's almost like we don't even need the elected government because the bureaucracy is just handling everything. And we can argue about the quality of and delivery and the expense of the services that they provide, if you want to call them services. But the fact is, everything just keeps ticking on just fine. This exercise of voting, I don't want to say it doesn't matter because you still have the capacity to vote for change. But the Liberal voter just reelected to a fourth term this government, and all of the ministers, all of the King's men who supported Trudeau all of the last 10 years in the breaking of the country can now switch gears, support Mark Carney. He could get tougher on crime. He could do a repeal of C-75. I'm not saying he's going to. I'm saying he could. Because if things keep going the way they're going, the country will fall apart. And maybe they like the chaos. Maybe they don't. Maybe incompetence explains it. Maybe it's a plan. But if the status quo is going to continue on and the Americans are going to do business with the world, and we're going to have resolution to the conflict in Ukraine, and we're going to have resolution in some of the other conflicts that are raging around the world, if that's what we're going to do, then all of a sudden it behooves the government in office, which is the exact same one that's been in power for the last 10 years, to change trajectory on a number of files and completely escape accountability. That's the part that kills me. The red voter will just shift gears as though the last 10 years of disaster didn't happen. And Mark Carney can be the great savior. And if the blue team had done the exact same thing, there would be universal condemnation. It's incredible to me. It's incredible. The capacity of the public mind to just move on without any accountability. Justin Trudeau just sails off in the sunset. Jagmeet Singh completely tanks and destroys the NDP, and we'll get to sail off into the sunset. One thing I will note, I've often said that my faith in federal elections was pretty rock solid, but it has been shaken. I think non-citizen voting is a major concern in this country. I think we've seen enough evidence of that all you need is a driver's license and proof of residence and you can vote. That in many close ridings that could have made a difference. I don't know that there is a concerted plan by any party to manipulate these rules to their advantage. I don't know if I've seen that, but I have seen a lot of voter registration cards sent out to non-citizens. That's a problem. Voter ID without proof of citizenship, that's a problem. And in many of the close ridings, it could have swung it one way or the other. But the other interesting factoid that we should all get is that the Liberal seat count continues to grow. How far are we away or out from the election? Nearly 2 weeks. They just picked up another one. They're at 170 now. Man, if they pick up one more, somehow, by magic, they can just govern with Elizabeth May. Isn't that fantastic? They can just dispense with the NDP, or they can just convince one or two MPs to cross the floor and they got their majority and they can rule for 4 years. And I see some people who are genuinely asking questions about this, how more ballots appear, even if there's only a few of them. They go into a review and they come out with 11 more ballots than they went into the review with. I don't think we need to get lost in the details. I think my faith in the electoral system has been shaken. I'm all about paper balloting. I'm all about hand counting. I think scrutineers are allowed access to a number of things, but this whole non-citizen voting thing is a problem. And I don't think anybody's going to want to fix it. I said in the lead up to the election that my worst nightmare was the status quo. And here we are. Even if Mark Carney decides to govern completely contrary to his book and to the things that he said on the campaign trail, and he actually delivers some quote-unquote good things for the country, the status quo continues. You still don't have an elected Senate. You still have no right of recall. The bureaucracy and the public sector unions are far more powerful than the parliamentarians you elect. Not the government you elect. The parliamentarians you elect, because you don't elect your government. And we've had a 9-month demonstration that the government is not Parliament, because Parliament hasn't been in session. The Governor General keeps signing notes, spending billions and billions and billions of dollars, adding to the national debt. And you as a citizen who gets to pay for it all have no access, no rights, no ability to influence it. You just get these farcical elections that you can participate in. And I still don't think I still think voting's purposeful if there's an option on the ballot for you to vote for. But with the problems I've just highlighted with non-citizen voting and all of these recounts that continue and a liberal seat count that keeps growing, my faith is shaken in the process. I don't know about you, but mine is. So my worst nightmare has come true. We have the status quo. And Mark Carney, being the chameleon that he is, might just shift the Liberal Party and the Liberal government enough to assuage just enough people that the status quo is maintained and all the call for change, which we should be engaged in, reform at the highest levels of our society, opening up the Constitution, all the things that we want, all the things that we should want, will just go away again for another multi-year period. And Canada will continue its journey towards cultural and ethnic oblivion. I'm Frank Vaughn, and I guess it sounds black-pilled. But the silver lining is, I guess, that things will be less dramatic for a while. Canadians are very at ease with the status quo. Did you know that I have a website? frankvaughn.ca, the ultimate repository for all of my work, and a backup location just in case the censors come for me again. And if you like the content, please consider using the donate link in one of the options available. There are no paywalls, there is no advertising, and there is no Patreon, and I intend to keep it that way. Thank you for your time and your consideration.